Hello and welcome to the Saltcast. My name's Ryan Johnson, and today we've got Paul and Jason on. Welcome, guys.
Morning, Ryan.
Hey Ryan, great to be here.
Everything goes so good when you got a plan. So today, we do have a plan, what we want to talk about. I think we always do, but we often talk about kind of the costly mistake, the most costliest mistake you can make when it comes to sales tax. And, Paul talks about that in multiple presentations he's done. And, that's, not collecting sales tax. Because when, the state does find out that she should have been, it comes out of your pocket. And so it can be very, very costly. But something that I would like to talk about today, guys, is what we call the greatest tragedy of sales tax. So, I'm sure our listeners are excited to hear what that possibly could be. So if you guys could talk on that.
Well, let me just talk
Yeah,
around.
for sure.
Oh,
Go ahead.
let me just talk around a couple of those concepts, right? So I interrupted Paul, but I want to reference what Paul would say, and that is the most costly mistake when it comes to sales tax is ignoring the situation. And the reason it's costly is because every month you ignore it and you potentially have a sales tax responsibility. Your potential exposure to those states grows. And the biggest tragedy is to have been able to correctly be registered and collect the tax from a willing customer and not collect it. And that's because sales tax, as we call it, is a margin killer. And we call it a margin killer because if 2 or 3 years go by and you should have been collecting tax, you weren't collecting tax, and the state imposes that tax on your sales transactions, then it comes out of your own pocket instead of your customer's pocket, but it comes out of your own pocket with penalty and interest. And if it comes out at 8% tax and 25% penalty and 10% interest, and your margins for your company are 10%, even 20%, your margins are completely wiped out simply because sales tax was ignored or you didn't understand your sales tax responsibility. And so huge costly mistake would be to ignore it. And a lot of times people ignore it because they think it's going to be overwhelming or significant or costly. But the worst thing you can do is ignore it because every month it gets worse. There's really no way out of it. I don't like to speak that way in complete fear. But complying is far less costly than non-compliance. And so that's what we constantly talk about, wanting to talk with everybody to help them understand what their responsibility might be. And then there are some great steps to help you achieve compliance and do so with confidence and peace of mind. Not with a lot of questions and wondering if it's right, but knowing that it's right. And so I would love Paul to just chat about this because there's another side of the coin, so to speak. You definitely don't want to ignore it, but sometimes if you go it alone, you might feel like you're doing the right thing, and legitimately, you might end up in jail. You might say, wait a minute. I might end up in prison over sales tax? Yes, because if you go it alone and you don't do it correctly and you think you might be doing the right thing, you might put yourself in worse jeopardy. And that is being out of the money and be sitting in prison. And the reason that is you simply cannot just be collecting tax and not remitting it to the state. And unfortunately, we do have people that either get advice or on their own, they decide to just start collecting, but they don't have a plan to register and remit that tax. Or sometimes, unfortunately, people feel like maybe they can just skim off the top and they collect a certain amount of tax, but they don't remit all of that tax. So Paul, maybe you want to tell some horror stories.
I was just going to say, some people don't even know that they're collecting tax, and it may not even be on their mind or something that they're accounting for. They get set up, and the system is automatically collecting tax just based off of some default settings. Maybe it's charging the wrong rate. Maybe it's charging the rate based off of where you're located or set up. Myriad of things. I mean, you see it all, or we see it all in the sales tax world. But one of my favorite images actually is a local plumber here in St. George, and their logo is an ostrich with his head in the toilet. Now, he obviously is a plumber, and so there's some imagery there. But for me, that's what it's all about. Like, that's the biggest tragedy. Don't try and bury your head in a toilet or bury your head in the sand. Just, I don't want to worry about it. It's too much. I definitely understand from a business perspective, you're trying to turn a profit, to make a dollar, to increase sales, increase revenue, whatever you're doing, whether it be a good or a service. And so when it comes to tax, CPAs, accountants, tax attorneys, I mean, these guys are there to help and to support because that's what they do. And oftentimes businesses are like, no, I'm not going to pay those fees. I'm not going to get involved there. I'll just collect the tax. I'll deal with it later. And you don't have a plan or a game plan. And then the state comes knocking. They get word from a vendor or a customer, or maybe they purchase something from you and notice something askew, or a myriad of ways. And then that's when tragedy hits, because you realize, yeah, I should have been doing this different. I should have been doing this a better way. I think of another scenario. We work with all manner of clients, but I think of another scenario. A client wasn't aware that he was collecting tax and just wanted to hang on to it. He felt like this was an extra way to make money. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Which is funny because just this past week we came across a couple of news articles. This guy in North Carolina was audited by the state of North Carolina, and he had been embezzling tax, charging tax, collecting it, not remitting it, to the tune of about $90,000. But what stuck out to me in this situation was that he was in business for 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, shut his business down in 2019. Then 3 years later, it sounds like, and it seems like from the article, he was audited by the state of North Carolina. And you will think, well, business is closed, shut down, we've moved on. No. If you've collected tax, or you failed to collect tax even in the state has every right to go back as far back as possible to when you establish nexus to obtain the tax that they should have received at the time of transaction. And so you could think, oh, man, close my doors. I'm not doing business. State's not going to come after me. How are they even going to know? How are they going to find out? Well, in this instance, somehow they got wind, maybe through some other incident or through some other charges that this guy was up against, that he had some sales tax responsibility. And so now, whether he's put in jail or the news article indicates that he was put on $50,000 bond. So now he's got to pay the tax back, plus he's got to pay the bond, plus he's got these charges on his account. Just an absolute nightmare for something so simple and so little. You charge the 7, 8, 9% sales tax. Oh, that's extra gravy, right? That's extra. That's extra gravy on my biscuit. No. It's not your money. It's a trust tax. The state wants you to collect it, but it's theirs. It's their funds. It's their money. So you can't just hang on to it. Bad things have been known to happen. And again, it's something so simple, but yet people are overwhelmed by it, and it almost causes them a mild state of depression, if you will. It's just overwhelming. And so that's one of the things I love most about working at Peisner Johnson and doing so the last 14 years, is just the fact that we can help provide just a little bit of peace of mind, a little bit of comfort, just point you in the right direction, and then hold your hand or walk you down to ensure that everything is going just like it should, so that there aren't any surprises or mishaps. And then if something else comes along, maybe a state does come audit you, we're right here along your side to help support, to be there. We're not there to charge you millions of dollars to provide this support. We just want to be able to help and just a small fraction, wherever we can help, whether it be boots on the ground or just a moral support or somebody to hold your hand or somebody just to take the lead and just take it off your plate completely. We can help at every level, and that's awesome for me. It's awesome to be a part of various businesses and clients who are in that need. And this poor guy in North Carolina, he thought, man, I'm going to make him extra 90 grand by hanging on to this tax. Oh, this breaks my heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he
Breaks
wasn't
my
even
heart.
like thinking that way. Maybe he was thinking it's
Yeah.
like, I something I should have done, but I'll just put it off. And then he closed his business. Like, okay, I don't worry
That's
about
true.
that anymore.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah,
3 years
it could
later,
have been the reason he closed the business, right? At a certain point, sometimes you just can't figure it out. Another one last scenario that I'll share here is in relation to the fact that in sales tax you want to get it pretty right. Right? Some would say no, exactly right, but close enough is allowed in sales tax because you don't want to overpay, you don't want to underpay by very big margins. You want to be pretty accurate. And what I mean by that is you can't just decide to swing one way or the other really strong. So sometimes people will say to us, well, listen, the costs associated with getting it right, collecting the right amount at the right rate on the right items is can be somewhat complicated, as we've talked about a lot of times from state to state. And so sometimes a client will say to us, can't I just collect tax on everything? And just to ensure that I get it all, can't I just collect at 10%? I'll pay it to the state. Just, I don't want to owe the state anything. So can I just collect it at the highest rate I think possible? No, no, don't. Yeah, I mean, yes, do that until an attorney catches wind that you're doing that. And then you have a class action lawsuit on all of the customers that you charge that way. So you can't swing wildly one way or the other. You can't ignore it, and you can't just say, well, I'll just collect more than what might be due from everybody on everything and I'll be good.
Yeah.
And you most definitely can't be collecting without a plan to comply, or the ability to comply. So end result is, whatever your situation is, just as Paul has aptly stated and what you hear Ryan say a lot of times, just jump on a what's next call and use a little bit of free collaboration to gain some confidence in what your next step should be. And we're happy to help you gain confidence in whatever that decision is.
Amen.
Well, that's great. One final question. We don't have to go too much in depth on this, but
200.
If 200?
Oh, my bad.
So I'm just thinking about, listeners, if they're in this, position, right? They feel like they've waited too long to get this taken care of, and now, they're in deep trouble. But I just want to give those people some peace of mind, knowing that there's a way out. What is if we have some listeners that are in this current predicament, what is your advice to them? What can be done to help them climb out of that hole?
Well, it's never too late. It's never too late. And the longer you wait to fix it, the more complex and the bigger that snowball is getting. So you might as well just stop, jump on a what's next call. Let's collaborate. Let's figure out what kind of money we're talking about. How material is it? Are you not collecting tax? Are you collecting too much taxes? Have you been collecting tax and you're just not remitting it? I mean, there are just so many different scenarios, but there are solutions, remedies. There's amnesty programs. There's voluntary disclosure agreements. There's registrations and remitting the tax. There's refunding tax to customers. There's lots of options, avenues to pursue to help mitigate potential penalties and interest. And we'll educate you. We'll teach you and talk to you about the pros and the cons.
I was going to say, don't just pick one of those that he just indicated.
No.
Just chat with us. It doesn't cost you
Yes.
anything to chat with us, and you will walk away with greater peace of mind in what that remedy should be for your situation. Because it doesn't matter what's happened, how long it's been, how much it is.
Exactly.
The remedy is available, but the way you remedy the situation That's what you want to have some confidence in.
Yeah. And everybody will be a little bit different too. People have different risk factors. There's different materiality for what really impacts the business. Some people, $10,000 is a lot. Some people, $100,000 is nothing. So, and there are pros and cons of it all, and that's what we will help educate and teach you about, so that you could make, and you can, and you'll feel comfortable and confident making a business decision that's right for you and
Yeah.
your company.
And
So that
something that we
you don't
may
have.
have skipped that may have been inferred in this poor guy situation in North Carolina is the fact that a lot of times people feel like, hey, I shut my business down. Everybody needs to know that when it comes to sales tax, the business is in jeopardy based on how it interacts, but so is the owner.
Mhm.
When you complete a sales tax registration form, it asks for the owners, it asks for their personal information, and it results in them potentially coming after the owners if there's some sort of shortfall in these types of situations.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes companies are uncomfortable with that. But at the end of the day, the state wants to know who is ultimately going to be responsible to ensure that the sales tax is collected and remitted properly, because we want to be able to make certain that we communicate with them. But also, for security purposes, you don't want somebody contacting the state, obtaining information on your account involuntarily and just obtaining personal information. So the state wants to know who exactly they can communicate with and give this information to for security purposes. So this is twofold.
Guys, thank you so much. That was some really good information. I think can really help a lot of people. We get a lot of people who reach out to me and it's like, what do I do? I'm getting started. And I applaud those people. They're really
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they're getting it right from the beginning. So, so there you go. If you have any questions and you're scared about what to do next, we'll give you that peace of mind. We'll help you come up with a plan. You got nothing to worry about. So again, thank you guys, and we hope to see you on another one.
Thanks, Ryan.